So I am probably way overdue on this video. And I say that because I have been receiving this question off and on for many months. And for whatever reason, it just never occurred to me to create a video to answer the question of if now is the time to sell one's comic. And because of a lot of the excitement around books like The Ultimate Fallout and everything that is related to Knull, I'm starting to get a lot of questions about, is now the time to sell? Should I sell my book now? Is this the right move for me? Should I do it right now? Do you think the value of these books is going to go up in the future? These are some of the questions that people have been posing to me as of late. And because of these questions, it got me to thinking again. And I began to reflect on all the questions that I've received in the past along these lines. And again, that's why I feel like I'm late on answering this question. Now, here's the thing. I am not going to tell you when to actually sell your book. There are people that are out there on YouTube that have created a lot of videos that will tell you the precise time in which to actually sell a comic based upon a movie or a TV show or some of these other things, these other market things that could happen. What I'm actually going to talk about in this video is if you should sell the book, if you should sell the book that is in your possession, if now is the right time for you. And like all of my videos, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but I am going to give you a few things to think about, a few things to consider so that you can arrive at the right decision for yourself. If you're interested in hearing more, I want to encourage you to stay tuned for the video. Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to talk about if you should actually sell the comics that are in your possession. Because maybe the book or the books that are in your possession are hot books and the value has skyrocketed. And you're asking yourself if now is the time to actually sell this book. And should you actually sell this book? I will be honest with you. This is probably one of the hardest decisions that we as collectors and even speculators for that matter have to make. It's one of the hardest things because if you have the book, you guessed right, or you picked right, or your interest just lined up with the excitement of something that was happening in the market. And let's be honest, that doesn't always happen. And so the question is, do you seize the opportunity and part with the book that is in your possession, or do you hang on to that book? So that is part of what we will try to explore over the course of this video. And as I mentioned in that intro, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but what I will do is to give you a few things that you might want to think about as you evaluate the book that is in your possession and whether you should actually move that book on to someone else. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the discussion around if now is the time to sell. So anyone that has watched a lot of my videos knows that I am a huge fan of setting a goal for one's collection. By having a goal for your collection, it allows you to make decisions against that goal, right? If you have a buy or a sale decision to make, you can ask yourself, how does this decision jive with the overall goal of my collection? For example, if you had the first appearance of Knull and you picked it up because you were just interested in reading the comic back in the day, but your goal for your collection, your objective for your collection is to build the best golden age collection that you could possibly build. Knull doesn't necessarily jive with that overall objective for your collection, right? Because Knull, while he's a high character and may have some potential, isn't a golden age book. And so the question becomes, do you sell that book in order to go out and buy yourself the golden age comic that you really want, that puts you further along in down the path, if you will, of achieving your overall goal for your collection? So if you haven't set a goal for your collection, set a goal for your collection, because once you do that, it makes it a little bit easier to make decisions because you get to check in against that overall goal. So that's why I always start these videos with, what is the goal for your collection? How does the decision that you are about to make fit with that goal, with that strategy for one's collection? One of the next things that you want to ask yourself is the excitement around this particular book or character real, or the result of FOMO? There are a lot of rumors. There is a lot of speculation. There is a lot of hype out there. All of those things can drive up the values, or the prices, if you will, of a particular book. And very quickly, as those rumors and speculative hype starts to dissipate, the prices and the values of those books can drop just as quickly as they went up. So you have to ask yourself, if I'm hearing some rumors about a particular character, about a particular book, is it real? Is it likely to actually happen? Is there some evidence out there that this is happening? Whether it be an option that was picked up. Did the option actually get picked up? If they're saying that they're going to make a movie, are they actually making that movie? Is that TV show about to actually appear? Have you seen any evidence, a press release, any kind of news article that actually leads you to believe that what you're hearing is true? If it is just the result of hype and FOMO, there is no substance there, now could be the time to actually sell that book, because if the prices are inflated, you could sell that book. And when the price comes back down, as people start to realize that what they've heard out there isn't real, you can always go back out and pick that book up, probably for less money, right? And still be able to pocket the difference. But if after you do your research, you realize that the excitement that you're hearing about with this particular book or this particular character is indeed real, then you have to ask yourself, how long will it take for the real value of that book to present itself? Because in my head, there's always a couple of waves of this stuff. There's an initial excitement when people start to hear it, and then there are going to be those people that move really quickly, and then there's going to be those people that hear it a little bit later, and then there is typically another wave that will actually happen. So you have to ask yourself, which wave do you want to ride, right? Because you could make a nice chunk of money on the first wave, right? Let's be honest about that. And you can make a couple of more bucks on the second wave, but what happens between wave 1 and wave 2 if, again, people start to come to their senses for whatever reason, or a large influx of books suddenly hit the market? It could affect the value. So the question is, do you sell on the first wave or do you sell on the second wave? Because that is a risk that you will take. And realistically, how much money will it swing up from the first wave to the second wave? If you're following the example that I'm giving, is $20 a meaningful amount of money, or 200 or 2,000, right? So you have to ask yourself, is now the time to sell? If you bought the book for $1 and you can sell the book for 200 versus 220, which one do you take? Do you take the 200 while you have the opportunity? Again, you paid $1 for it. Or do you gamble and wait for the extra $20? Is that extra $20 really going to be meaningful to you? I don't know. And that's why, again, this is one of the hardest things that any of us will ever have to decide. So one of the other things that you have to consider is, does the book have some long-term potential? And as an example, I firmly believe that Miles Morales has a lot of long-term potential. That book has been around $50, $100 kind of book for quite some time. Ultimate Fallout #4, right? And that book has suddenly skyrocketed. But the thing is that I believe that book, that character, has some long-term potential, and there are some things that are actually happening in the marketplace that may serve to sustain the values of that book long term. So you have the movie that is going to be coming out. You have the deal that Marvel recently inked with Scholastics to continue putting out graphic novels through schools and possibly even wherever else Scholastics books are actually sold. But my point is that this is a character that has some long-term potential because of the appeal, but also because of the moves that are being made with that particular character. My son actually just got a face mask featuring Miles Morales the other day. I don't know where my wife bought it from, but it's a fabric featuring Miles Morales. That doesn't just happen accidentally. There is a plan behind that, right? So the thing is, if you believe that the character has some long-term potential, then maybe you actually want to hold on to that book. If you believe that the character doesn't have long-term potential, now could be your opportunity to essentially cash out and to take the proceeds from the sale of that book to actually do something else that is more meaningful to you. Because the truth is, not every book in your collection is a book that fits with your collection. Not every book in your collection is a meaningful book to you. And sometimes by giving up a book, it gives you the opportunity to actually buy a book or something else that you really want for your collection. So let's say that you have arrived at the conclusion that this particular book does not fit with your collection. It is not a book that you are excited about. It is not a character that you believe has some long-term potential. If you decided to sell the book, what would you do with the funds? Do you actually have a plan to use those funds? Because in many cases, as collectors, we know how to spend some money. So let's say that you did make a healthy profit. If you didn't already have something in mind, you might end up nickel and diming that money away on a book here, a book there, but not necessarily on a book that is truly meaningful to your collection. So maybe before you cash out on one book, you set your sights on another book that you actually want to add to your collection, a book that is actually meaningful to you, a book that actually helps you to achieve the objectives that you have for your collection. Maybe you line up that book and you decide on the book, on the grade, whether it's raw, whether it's graded, whatever it happens to be. Maybe you line that up before you divest yourself of this other book, right? And then you automatically know what you're going to pick up just as soon as that book is sold. And so again, this is just something for you to kind of think about as you noodle whether you want to move these books on to another home. So while we're on this topic of selling a book, let's say that you did it. And let's say a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, the price of that book actually goes up. How would you feel about that? How are you going to feel if you sell the book for, let's just say $100 and the book goes up to $1,000? How are you going to feel? I guess a lot of it will depend upon a couple of things. Did you do something meaningful with the $100? And let's be honest, there's not a whole lot of meaning that you can do with the $100. I'm just using that. I'm just using that as a number, as a placeholder. You plug in whatever the number is. But let's say, if you sold the book and you actually did something meaningful with that money, would it matter that the value of the book that you sold actually skyrocketed if you have something else that is much more meaningful to you? Maybe you might feel a certain way. And the question is, how much would the book go up for you to feel a certain way? Is it $100? Is it $200? Is it $1,000? Is that what's meaningful to you? I don't know, but you have to think about that. You have to think about the seller's remorse that could actually come from you divesting yourself of a comic and the value of that book actually going up. And there are people out there that will tell you that seller's remorse is a real thing. So again, you have to ask yourself, if you're going to sell this book, what are you going to buy? Is that thing going to be meaningful to you enough to offset what could potentially happen with the book that you sold? That is a question that you want to think about. And I will tell you, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you is this. If you sell the book, don't look at the values after you sell it. That is probably one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you. Trust me when I tell you. I also, when I buy a book, I also don't look at the values of the book for a while. I'll give it several months before I look at the values of a book after I've bought it or I've sold it. It's just easier for me mentally to separate myself from that transaction, because if I buy it and I paid a certain amount of money for it and the price goes down, I feel a certain way. If I sell it and the price goes up, I feel a certain way, right? So I just don't pay attention. It's the same way when I send books off to be graded. Send them and forget them. The best piece of advice that I will give you in any video, right, is just do it and ignore it after a while. So my next question is around, if you don't sell it and the price drops, how are you going to feel? Because that's the other side of the coin. Let's say that you have this book and this book is performing well and you have an opportunity to sell this book. But because you are waiting to see if the price will go a little higher, while you're waiting, what happens is the complete opposite. The value of the book drops because for some reason or another, maybe it was FOMO that drove the price up, or maybe the movie was optioned or the book was optioned and then it was decided that they weren't going to actually do the movie for some reason or another, and the bottom drops out of the book. How would you feel about that if that were to happen? Would you be okay with that? And if so, cool. But if you feel a certain way about having a book in your possession and not selling it because you're waiting for the price to go up and there is a chance that the price could drop out of the bottom, that might be a sign that you may want to divest yourself of that particular comic. At the end of the day, there are no perfect answers. You are going to make mistakes. I have made many of them. But that's part of the fun of this hobby, if you will. You know, hopefully none of us are not paying bills or not putting food on the table because of this hobby. And so maybe you can keep it a little fun. Maybe you make $20 less or something like that. But my hope is that no one's losing any sleep over any of this stuff, because at the end of the day, it's still some comics. And yes, there is some money that is involved, but hopefully none of this is detrimental to anyone's health or well-being or any of that other kind of stuff. So again, I just wanted to offer up a few things for you guys to think about and a few things for you to consider. And I will tell you that I actually played essentially this game, if you will, with a guy by the name of Jay Perez. And I hope it's okay that I say his name, but he reached out to me recently, as do a lot of people, saying, hey, I'm thinking about this, that, or the other. What do you think? And I basically posed many of these questions to him on Instagram, and he responded back in such a fantastic way. His response to me was, I purchased Knull because it was part of a long-term plan for me to buy up fantastic characters that I wanted to hold for 10 years or so, because I believe in these characters. I believe in the books that I'm buying, and they fit with an overall strategy. And he says, while I am tempted to essentially sell this book and to make some money now, because this fits into my strategy so beautifully, because Knull is specifically called out in the goals and objectives that I have for my collection, I am not going to sell it. It was the most fantastic response ever. And he said to me, I just wanted to pressure test it. I just wanted to bounce it off of you and hear what your thoughts were. And it was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed the exchange, because oftentimes whenever someone reaches out to me and asks me these questions of what should I do, I don't tell them what to do, because I honestly don't know. I honestly do not know the future. But what I can do is to be a good thought partner. I can pose to people questions and things for them to think about and things for them to consider, so that they can make a decision for themselves. Because I could very easily be wrong. And so I don't want to say go left and right is the answer. I don't want to be that guy. So instead of doing that, I say to people, you decide whether you want to go left or right. And my thought is that if people go through this thought process, if they ask themselves some questions, if they decide for themselves, then wherever they land is the right decision. Even if it's the wrong decision, it's still the right decision, because they took time to work through it themselves. And so I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, I want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment behind so we can mix it up in the comment section. If you sold a book and had some regrets, I want to hear about that. If you sold some books and not had any regrets, I want to hear about that too. Maybe you bought something that was really meaningful to you, or maybe the bottom fell out of the book. I am very curious to hear about your experiences with selling comics and timing it right and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to reading the comments down in the comment section. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. And if you need to send me an email, you can email me as well at reggie@regiecollects.com. Take care.